Welcome to Paint a Beautiful Picture. Today we're going to talk about the principle of addressing addiction. I'm sure every single one of us wishes that such a thing did not even exist. But let me tell you, it is an extraordinarily prevalent problem, not just in our culture in the United States of America, but truthfully across the globe. There are definitely some personalities that are more prone to addiction, and there are certainly chemical imbalances in the body that can make a person have a predilection toward addiction. And then, of course, there are genetic influences and environmental factors also. If you don't talk to your kids about drugs or alcohol, in my personal opinion, by the time they're 5 or 6 years old, you're probably too late. I've had a lot of parents say to me, "Oh, that's absolutely ridiculous." And yet, I know someone who started smoking grass very consistently, very regularly when they were about 8 years old. I know two different people that regularly started smoking cigarettes when they were 5 and 6. No kidding. I wish I were, but I'm not. You need to have this discussion with your child and explain to them. Every human being has character flaws, weaknesses, personal issues, challenges. Use whatever language makes you happy. But please do me a favor and don't make it insulting or rude or demeaning. Because none of us need to have someone else be horrible to us when we are already struggling plenty enough within ourselves. So this is a matter of having compassion and deep concern for that person and their well being. And often that means helping them learn how to cope minus the addiction. So, as long as you are critical, judgmental, nasty, unkind, yeah, you are not in any way, shape, or form being productive in helping them become less of an addict. So, you say to your child, there are a lot of things in the world that people use. I'll use the language this way, recreationally to feel good. So some people have a beer on Saturday night because they like the buzz, and that's a legal one. Some people, smoke a joint because though it's illegal, it has some similarities to drinking a beer, and they just want to feel relaxed, and it definitely kind of mellows your disposition, and so they like to do that. Some people do more harmful, long lasting, destructive things, like they get drunk every day because once they have that first drink, they're not going to stop until they're absolutely wasted out of their mind. And some people, they might be able to have a couple tokes off of a Mary Jane and they're just going to feel good. And other people, they're going to smoke the entire dime bag, which I realize is smaller than it was back when I was a kid. But nonetheless, they're going to smoke the whole entire thing until they're just absolutely bonkers, and they're pretty much not going to be capable of handling anything or anybody. And then, of course, we're going to go to much harder things like cocaine, meth addiction, uh, narcotics, Oxycontin, Norcos, just a lot of things, and heroin. And so you need to look at your child and say, I don't know yet because you're a little kid, but you might have a severely addictive personality. And if you try any of those things, it may take you down a really terrible road. So I want to encourage you, A, don't do any of this stuff at all until you're an adult, because a kid's body can't really process these things. In fact, I just heard about a young man who somebody gave him a pill and he thought it was Percocet. And he took it, and within 2 hours, he was dead because someone had laced it with fentanyl and he was gone. I want you to know, when I had surgery on this arm, they used 2 milligrams of fentanyl. That was enough to put me down and do a full surgery, okay? And then they had to bring me back up. If your child gets a hold of that, I'm very serious. They are probably going to die. As a mom or a dad, you teach your child when you cross the street, you stop, you look both ways, and you listen before you step off the curb and cross the street. That's responsible parenting. You're teaching your child caution to save their life. In addressing addiction, you are doing the exact same thing. So you tell them. If someone gives you something and you don't know what that is, don't eat it. Don't eat candy. If they give you an unopened package of candy, that's fine. They just hand you stuff, don't eat it because you don't know what's there. And other kids have done it to other kids. Seriously, it's something you have to address with your child. Don't touch it. Don't drink stuff that you don't know what that is. You definitely need to tell this to young women. I only wish that I didn't have to say this to you, but I've counseled quite a number of young women that were date raped because they didn't watch their drink. So I say, and you need to teach this to your kids. No joke. If you have a can of pop and you set it somewhere and you walk away and you're running all over and there are a lot of people around, then you need to get rid of it. Don't go back and drink the rest of your pop. Don't do it. And don't drink someone else's. And don't drink out of someone else's glass. And if you're at a bar with your friends and you're dancing on a Saturday night, don't put your drink down. I'm not joking about this, okay? You've got to teach your kids how terribly serious this is. As in, it can kill them serious, okay? Then you deal with the principle of addiction with an older child, we'll say 10 to 12, perhaps a little differently. And you'll say, okay, so I realize that someday you're going to be at a party and all these kids are going to be, smoking something, even if it's a cigarette, no kidding. They're going to be smoking something. They're going to get into their dad's liquor cabinet and drink stuff. And I don't want you doing it because you don't understand the potential of what could happen to you. And I've shared this story before, but I'm going to repeat it here because it's so critical. I always told my sons, I'm not going to freak out on you, even as a moral Christian. If you're at some party and you get wasted or you get high, because human beings, they do stuff. But don't get in a car. By all means, do not get in a car because you will hurt yourself, especially the first time and you know nothing about how you're going to react. Do not get into a car. So my son went to a party and they were playing this stupid game and he's doing all these shots and he would not get in his car, much to his credit. Even as messed up as he was, he didn't get in the car. So his friend said, oh, I'll take you home. He's like, no, you're as drunk as me. I'm going to walk. And he started walking. He had extreme alcohol poisoning. He told me he had somewhere between 18 and 20 shots. He weighed about 130 pounds. I don't even want to talk about what his blood level was. And thank God, when he passed out on the way home in a ditch, he passed out face down and going down in the ditch. Because if he would have passed out on his back, he would have died. The end. As a nurse, I'm promising you this is not a joke. So he wakes up covered in his own vomit. But thankfully, because of the way that he fell down, he lived through it. And he told me about it the very next day. And he will still have a drink. And when he goes out, like on certain Friday nights to sing karaoke, he has a drink for in 3 or 4 hours and never lets go of that drink. All right. So you do need to address this with your kids and not when they're 17 or 18, because I promise you the average kid in the United States of America today has their first drink at 13 or 14. That's why I said by 10, you need to have this conversation with your child. And you need to tell them, you don't need to do this. You don't know how your body is going to react. You don't know how your mind is going to react. You don't know what's going to happen to you, and your body is too young to process this. If you're at a party and this starts happening, get to a phone, call me immediately. No matter what, I will come and get you. Or walk out the door and start walking down the street and call me. Don't stay there. Don't participate. You actually can do some role playing with them about this. Put 6 or 7 kids in a circle and say, oh, come on, what's wrong with you? Are you a sissy? Man, dude, like, you're so foolish. Who cares what your mom said? Your mom's a square, or whatever the common language is. You really put some pressure on that kid and have him say, no, I'm not doing this. No, this is my own decision. No, I don't want to do this. No, I'm not going to go along with this. You teach them however many times in however many ways that the answer is no, 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 no. All right. Well, what do you do with the kid who really wants to say yes? Oh, mom, I just like wanted to see. I wanted to check it out. I didn't think it was that big of a thing. Dad, come on, dude. Like you drink 4 beers every Saturday night. I mean, what's it going to hurt? All right. This can be controversial. You can disagree with me. You can write me every email in the world and yell at me and chew me out. I respect that. By the time a kid is 13 or 14, if he's been doing this and doing this and doing this, or she has, you could let him have a swallow of beer. Okay. Stuff is the most disgusting thing I've ever put in my mouth before. I mean, I'm 66 years old, and I can honestly tell you, I think I was like 57, and this friend of mine said, oh, you just need to have a beer so you can say that you had a beer in your whole lifetime. Ugh. I think I drank half of it. It was the nastiest thing I ever did. It's disgusting. So that's not really a problem for me. That's what I mean. Give them something really gross. Let them have a swallow or two. Say, okay, what do you think? A lot of kids, it'll cure them. I will warn you, though, someone who is an absolute physical alcoholic, that can have an impact on them the rest of their life. No joke, because it'll trigger something in them chemically. So the other option is to just tell them, no, you're not going to do that. Never let them go to parties. I mean, you can lock them down forever, but someday they're going to move out of your house. Okay, so that's why I'm telling you about the principle. Help them understand. This has very long-lasting, horribly damaging ramifications. Let's talk about that. Okay, depending on how brave you are, take your kid on a Saturday night to a drunk tank. Let them see what drunks look like, how drunks sound, the way a drunk acts. Puke their guts up. I cannot even tell you how bad that place smells, okay? I just really want you to know that. Urine, feces, vomit. Yeah, it's disgusting beyond all belief. Oh, even better yet, find somebody somewhere who has cirrhosis of the liver and let them go see what that looks like. That person who's in pain every day and barely can eat, and it's throwing their guts up, not from what they drank, but because their body can't even handle regular nourishment. Or go online. Let them really see some stuff that shows it to them. And that's only alcohol. Okay? Let them see somebody who's been on meth for 5 years. I know there are people online who talk about this. Their teeth are all rotted out. Their skin is horrible. Let's talk about the physical implications. Often they can't keep a job. Of course, they're always broke. They often end up homeless or in a really bad situation because they're spending all their cash on getting high or getting wasted. They don't have money to pay for an electric bill or a rent bill or shoes for their kids' feet. So frequently they lose their family. Many people lose their job. Lots of people lose their life. In my day, back in the 60s and 70s, that was jumping off of a building on a bad LSD trip. Or like a friend of mine who used LSD way back in the 70s. So we're talking going on 50 years ago. And occasionally he still has flashbacks. And he has to lock himself in a safe room so he doesn't hurt himself on those flashback trips that he still has all these many years later. Do as much as you can to help your child understand what the implications of addiction really and truly are, and how difficult it is to get off. The average alcoholic goes between 4 and 6 times to treatment before they stop drinking. That's a true fact. I won't talk about cash or the psychological implications of feeling like a failure or a lesser human being. Just, it is a really strong addiction, and though it may be legal, it can still be very lethal. And if you don't think so, take a look at the statistics about how many people get killed every single day in the United States of America by drunk drivers, including mothers and babies and little children. Okay, let's talk about stronger addictive things like meth, cocaine, fentanyl, heroin. They'll tell you that oftentimes people start off on one drug and after a while it doesn't give them much of a high, and so they go to a bigger one. That isn't always the case. Sometimes people get a hold of something right off the bat. Whether that is a friend who introduces them, or they get a hold of it really and truly because someone laced something and gave it to them. And even that is enough to start the addictive process. Or they're just curious, because let's face facts, kids and teenagers, they are curious. And sometimes that curiosity will do them great damage or even kill them. So try to establish for your child the importance of understanding that an addiction will hurt you, it will hurt your family, it hurts your culture, it hurts people in your work environment, costs a ton of money, costs a lot in psychological damage, and it could cost your life or the life of your friend. In any situation, all we can ever do is warn our kids. So I'm going to tell you something. Every parent who does the stop, look, and listen when their kid crosses the road, my neighbor's son, his name was Kevin, came home, got off the bus this one day. The bus left because he was talking to his friend. Didn't even look, goes whipping across the road, gets slammed. Thank God the driver was only going about 25 miles an hour, but it still broke both of his legs and one of his arms. All of us have to know we should listen to caution. We need to listen to wise advice. And if we don't, there is always a price to pay. So please listen to this principle that is a very good foundational principle in your child's life and help your child understand addiction and its effects. I'm sure we will talk about this some more in the future because it's worth talking about. But I would really like to encourage you to have the difficult conversation with your child about addiction and what it can mean. And tell them exactly what I said to you about as a kid, I taught you to stop, look, and listen before you cross the road. I'm trying to save your life by having you not get slammed by a car. And this conversation about drugs and alcohol, it is exactly the same. I'm not on your case. I'm not on your back. This is not a negative conversation. This is about how much I love you, and I'm trying to prevent you, to give you a caution sign about something that could cause you trouble in the future. My challenge question for you today is this: are you an addict? Because lots of us are. Do you know someone very close to you that is an addict and it has really had an impact on your life? And are you willing to take the steps necessary to have this conversation with your child to possibly prevent for them the heartache and the trouble that comes from being an addict? Please send me your comments and your questions, and I will look forward to hearing from you. It's been good to have you with me today. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.